Shalom, boys and girls. Welcome to another week of Storytime with Rabbitz and Chrissy. I know a lot of parents are probably like, why aren't we doing more Torah and things? That's fine. That's, up to you to be doing. But there has to be some balance, which was what my husband and I like to we like to teach people is there it needs to be balanced. Too many people are so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good. So what we're trying to do is to build character, good godly character in our children today. So boys and girls, last week we talked about the Coopersville Secret Society. This week we are going to talk about two characteristics that we want to learn to build in our own lives. The first thing we're going to learn about is how to trust in God, or Father Yahweh, and also to have faith. So today their story is called When God Controlled a Railroad Train. Many years ago, an engineer brought his train to a stop at a little village in Massachusetts, where the passengers had only 5 minutes to get off the train and stretch their legs a bit before the train pulled out again. "The conductor tells me that the train to Bedford leaves the junction ahead 15 minutes before we get there," said a sad-looking lady on the platform to the engineer. "That is the last train tonight to Bedford, and I'm trying to get home with a very sick child. I have no money for a hotel. I simply must reach that train on time and get home tonight." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this cannot be done," replied the engineer. "Well, would it be possible for you to hurry just a little?" asked the anxious, fearful mother. "No, ma'am. I have a schedule, and the rules say I must follow it exactly." The woman turned away sorrowfully, but a moment later she was back. "Excuse me, sir. Are you a believer?" she asked the engineer. He looked somewhat puzzled. "Well, yes, ma'am, I am," he answered. "Why do you ask?" "Well, will you pray with me that the Lord may, in some way, delay that train at the junction?" "Well, yes, I'll pray with you, but I don't have much faith that the train will be delayed long enough for you to make your connection." Just then the conductor called out, "All aboard!" The poor woman hurried to get back into the train and take care of her sick little child. The engineer quickly climbed to his spot in the engine, and soon the train was puffing its way down the track, climbing the grade. In her seat on the train, the woman prayed for God to help her to reach the Bedford train in time. Up in his seat at the throttle, the engineer also prayed. "Lord," he said, "delay that Bedford train only 10 minutes, and I'll make up the extra 5 minutes." Somehow, the engineer later recalled, "Everything seemed to go according to some plan. After I prayed, I couldn't help increasing my speed just a little. We hardly paused at the first stop. People got on and off more quickly than I've ever seen before. In half a minute, the conductor was waving his lantern, and we were off once again. I began to have more faith that he would reach the junction before that other train leaves." Once over the summit of the mountain, it was easy to give the engine a little more steam, and then a little more. I prayed, and the train seemed to shoot down the rails like an arrow. I sensed something was pushing us forward, and I couldn't hold her back. We came rushing into the junction 6 minutes ahead of schedule, and there stood the Bedford train. Its conductor was still standing on the platform, his lantern resting on his side. Now, these trains never connected with each other. They weren't intended to. The schedule didn't allow for it. No message had been sent ahead to hold the Bedford train. There was no reason it should not have left the station several minutes earlier. Yet, there it stood, waiting. The conductor of the Bedford train approached the engineer of the train that had just pulled into the junction. "Well," he inquired, "will you tell me what you're waiting for? Somehow, I felt that I needed to wait until you arrived at the station tonight, but I don't know why." Well, I can tell you why, replied the engineer. I have a woman on board my train who has a very sick child who must get home tonight. She has been praying, and I have been praying, that somehow your train would still be here when we arrived. And here you are. The end. Now, like I said last week, I always have 2 to 3 questions to ask you. And if you could, comment below so that way I know that you listened to the story and that you paid attention and that you will give me the answers to the story. Okay? First question is, does God or Yahweh know what we need before we tell Him about it in prayer? That's a real good one. And boys and girls, and sometimes if you don't understand a question, you can always ask Mommy and Daddy for help too. And my second question is, do you think God ever gets tired of doing good things for us? Wow, those are some really good questions. Well, I look forward to hearing your comments below, and I will see you guys next week. Shalom.